final numbers are in, and as expected, they're not hardly as good as they were last year. Jim Dooley has much more in this month's North Central Outdoors.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the February edition of North Central Outdoors. I'm your host Jim Dooley, and this month we're going to kind of talk just a little bit about the culmination of our deer season. As most of you know, the middle of January ended our deer season, and if any of you hunted and participated, you're well aware of the fact that throughout the season, on the opening and the closing dates, the weather really wasn't conducive to, it wasn't optimal hunting weather. And consequently, as I said last month, I kind of projected, without really knowing, I just kind of projected that I thought that the harvest would be down. Well, lo and behold, the harvest in Macon County is down. The harvest statewide is down. And the harvest within the Unadale counties, which is all of Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee, is also down. Now, it's not the decreases weren't that much. Macon County from last year, the total harvest was down just a very few deer. I think this year it was around 1,100, and last year it may have been just around just a few more than that. But anyway, it's not that much, not enough to worry about. But what it will probably relate to, there'll be some of those deer that weren't killed this year were bucks, and the probability is that some of those bucks that weren't killed were good bucks, or 2.5, 3.5, 4.5-year-old bucks. So as a hunter looking forward, you have probably a pretty good opportunity next year to harvest a quality deer. Now, you may have harvested 2 this year, but next year with the excess of bucks that we'll have in the population, that percentage or the probability will probably increase some. Now, we're in February, going toward the spring. The deer have 90% or better, 99% or better have already been bred. The females have been bred. The days are getting longer. The hormone levels in both the females and the males are dropping based upon light intensity. And one of the things that happens when the days get longer is that those male deer drop their antlers. And so that'll give you, as individuals on your leases, on your hunting grounds, the places that you've got the opportunity to hunt, you can go walk those deer trails and see if you can't find some sheds. If you find the sheds, that will give you a pretty good idea of what type of deer was occupying that particular piece of ground. And you can document them, you know, with all the technology opportunities we have. You can, you know, let's say hypothetically you were walking a trail that's really been used, that goes up to an oak flat, and you find a really good set of sheds. You know, you can drop a point on your a waypoint at that location, and if you walk your property and maybe find 2 or 3 sets of sheds on your property, you can kind of piece together the movements and the patterns and the feeding areas and the bedding areas that your deer population had last year. I think also, if you were to do that, you'd be real surprised of the deer that you never saw but were there. And that's, you know, going back to the Tucker buck, that potential, I guess it's just about a done deal, but it's going to be official in 2019. That Tucker buck was a buck that when it was killed, people were very surprised that a deer of that quality could be taken in a location that is primarily urban. It can happen where you hunt. So also, in conjunction with looking for those sheds on your properties, if you were to find trails, not migration, but travel routes that crossed that at that intersection of those travel routes, those deer trails, that shows that it's a really you get double or triple or maybe 4 times the amount of activity there than you would just on a regular trail, just because it's a crossing place. It may be at a water hole. It may be a natural lick of some kind. But at those crossings where you come up on them, if you were to get mineral blocks and put out, and begin the process of establishing mineral blocks at those locations, they really have a pretty big mineral demand. The females do when they carry their young, and it really does help the bucks replenish what was depleted during the rut and that type of thing. It's good for them to have, and if you start now, you can really begin the process of getting them imprinted to those locations so that you'll have those established for your hunts next year. So do that, and it ought to be a real benefit for you and to you in the time to come. Now, the next segment that we're going to talk about, some small game hunting activities. Hello and welcome back. On this segment of North Central Outdoors, we're going to talk about some hunting activity that are still available for you here in Macon County and within Tennessee. As most of you know, we still have going on the small game seasons, primarily rabbit and squirrel. So you've got those opportunities available to you. There are some regulations, that you need to keep up with. Make sure that your dogs, when you're out running your rabbit dogs, make sure that they've got collars that have names on them. That way, if they do happen to go over onto somebody else's property and somebody else finds them, they'll be able to get a hold of you, let you know that they've got your dog. Also, if your dogs would happen to go over onto somebody, you do not have the inherent right to go retrieve your dogs. If it were me and I hunt with a dog, a squirrel dog, but if it were me and I wasn't familiar with the landowner, I would maybe go back to my truck, put my gun up, go to where the property where the dog is, and go to the house, try to locate the landowner and get permission before you go. And I say that because that rule, that law, is kind of how we all would like to be treated in that same situation. We all like to know and need to know who's on our property and what they're doing and that type of thing, So just be courteous. And I haven't had any problem this year with any kind of conflicts between dog hunters and rabbit hunters or coon hunters, raccoon hunters, or anything like that, and the public. So just keep up the good work, and you shouldn't have any problem. Also, this time of year is the breeding season for coyotes, and you can use howlers, and you can also use the squealers. You can go to landowners that maybe wouldn't have let you deer hunt, but they may appreciate you coyote hunting. Those hunting hours are daylight hours only. You can use a centerfire weapon or a rimfire. Just be careful with your shooting. You're shooting longer distances in open areas. Make sure of your backstop. Do not take just random shots, because as closely packed as we are here in Macon County, you could have an accident. Always be sure of your backstop, your target rather, and what's beyond. But enjoy the hunting seasons. Try to utilize this time of year when you're not wanting to kill deer or turkeys. Utilize it to try to develop those landowner relationships that you can use maybe in the turkey season this spring or in the deer season next fall. In the next segment that we go over, we'll talk about some non-game wildlife. See you in just a few. Hello and welcome back to our last segment in this month's North Central Outdoors. This segment we're going to talk about non-game wildlife. There's a lot of people in Macon County within the cities of Red Boiling and Lafayette and around that really don't hunt They may not ever buy a license, but they still enjoy wildlife. And they enjoy that wildlife outside their windows and outside their kitchen windows or their living room windows by viewing songbirds. Particularly this time of year, songbirds are really, really needful to have supplemental feeding for them. As a lot of you know, feeding stations are a good thing when they're used appropriately. Sometimes when the feeding stations go too long, they can become a problem. But this time of year, in February, which is bird feeding month, it's a good idea to have your feeding stations out and have them filled up. One of the best seeds out there for probably the largest variety of birds are black oiled sunflower seeds. Also, soot balls supplement and give the birds energy. But do those things, keep your feeders full, keep them clean, keep water there close by, and put them away from your house just a little bit to where you don't have a lot of traffic and where you're coming in and out doesn't disrupt their normal travel periods and activities. But hey, you can get a cheap pair of binoculars and look at them, identify them, take pictures of them, make a collection, make a book, put them online. You can just do anything. It's a wonderful way to introduce young people to wildlife, and it's just as enjoyable as the others. So enjoy the out of doors this cold February month, maybe from the inside of your house, and feed and help the wildlife. Also, as most of the sportsmen know, the end of this month ends your license expires. So the 1st of March, your fishing license and your hunting license is required. So get that. It should be available probably around the middle of the month. You'll be able to go online or go to a licensed agent and buy your 2017-2018 hunting and fishing license. But as you know, whether your activities are while your activities are in the field and while you're using firearms, you need to keep in mind that hunting safely and respectfully is not an accident. See you next month.